Can a team like Ferrari lose its way so much that not even two world champions can save it? Today we analyze the darkest day in Maranello in 2025. But the most serious thing was not the position in the timetable, but what the telemetry data revealed. The SF-25 was an unstable car in all aspects. It lost grip both when entering and exiting high-speed corners, the most characteristic of the Lusail layout. This instability affected both axles. The front one was inconsistent when braking and turning, while the rear one tended to slide at the most critical moment of acceleration. The result was a car that no driver could anticipate or control with precision. And in Formula One, when the car doesn't talk to you, you're lost. The real breaking point for Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton in Qatar was not the race itself, but the sprint qualifying. That Friday became a brutal mirror that reflected everything that is wrong with Maranello's 2025 project. And at the center of that chaos, Hamilton experienced his lowest moment since he decided to swap Mercedes for Ferrari, a decision that now seems to haunt him as a colossal strategic mistake. Sprint qualifying is a cutthroat format. 3 quick sessions with predefined tires, no room for error, no time to reflect. But at Ferrari, it wasn't just a problem of execution under pressure. It was a basic problem. Concept. By car. Since the SF-25 hit the track, it was clear that it was not designed to respond coherently to the conditions of Lusail, a layout of fast corners, long straights, and high lateral loads. Everything this Ferrari hates. Hamilton, a driver accustomed to molding the car to his style, entered the track with a configuration that he himself had helped define. A high downforce rear wing, designed to gain stability in fast corners. But the bet didn't work. Not only did it not give him greater security in the technical sections, but it penalized him with an excessive loss of top speed. On a track where more than half the time is spent flat out, that's a death sentence. SQ1 was a disaster. Lewis couldn't find his balance on any lap he took. The car did not respond, the tires did not warm up, and any attempt to improve the time ended with blockages or sudden corrections. But the most revealing thing was his body language after getting out of the car. I was disconnected, tired, disappointed not with his personal performance, but with Ferrari's inability to offer him a minimally competitive tool. The subsequent statements were cutting, almost painful in their honesty. Hamilton made no excuses. He didn't blame anyone specifically. He only let his frustration show with phrases that went viral due to their crudeness. Same as always, he responded when asked about the car. No, clearly not, when talking about the rear wing. And the most devastating, the weather is fine, when they asked him if there was anything positive for the next day. It wasn't sarcasm, it was resignation. But what hurt the most was not his elimination in SQ1. It was what it symbolized. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion, the driver who once dominated Formula One with an iron fist, was now fighting not to finish last in a sprint qualifying session. And not because of his mistakes, but because the Ferrari SF-25 simply does not live up to its talent. Sky Sports technical analyst Karun Chandok summed it up with surgical precision. There were no obvious driving errors. The car just doesn't allow you to attack. You have no confidence, you have no aerodynamic support, you have no traction. You are driving at the limit of what is possible with an unresponsive machine. And that is perhaps the most severe sentence that a team like Ferrari can receive. Having one of the best drivers in history and not being able to offer him a car worthy of his caliber. This was the lowest point, the bottom of the well. And although in Formula One you can always fall more, what was seen in Qatar with Hamilton in SQ1 was an image that will remain recorded as one of the saddest moments of the year for the Tifosi. Charles Leclerc, who for years has been the lighthouse in Ferrari's chaos, experienced an episode in Qatar that summarized his current role in the team. That of a navigator trapped in the middle of a storm without a compass, without maps, and most seriously, without clear technical direction from the wall. During sprint qualifying, Leclerc achieved what could be considered a small triumph, reaching SQ3 and placing 9th on the grid. But this result was an optical illusion, a superficial layer that barely concealed the real problem. Ferrari had no rhythm, and the Monegasque knew it better than anyone. His language on the radio was less sarcastic than Hamilton's, but no less disturbing. His words conveyed a pilot on the verge of silent desperation. "We are fighting again this weekend," he repeated, as if he had already accepted that the battle is lost before it begins. And that is the most worrying thing. Charles Leclerc has gone from being an impulsive driver, who in previous years pushed the car to the limit, even when it betrayed him, to becoming a competitor who seems to systematically distrust his machinery. There is no attack in its curves. There is no aggressiveness in its turns. Just defensive driving, full of doubts, more concerned with surviving than competing. During the qualifying lap in SQ3, Leclerc not only had to deal with an unbalanced car, he also faced the typical chaos of the last rounds, where all the drivers look for space for their fastest lap. And there occurred one of the most frustrating incidents for him. Carlos Sainz, now a Williams driver, reduced the pace considerably before the safety car line, generating a domino effect that forced several drivers, including Leclerc, to launch their lap very close to the car in front. He has the right to do it, but it is very annoying and sometimes unnecessary. "It's a shame because I had to start my lap too close," he declared with a tone more of resignation than anger. The sprint race in Qatar was the final blow. What had begun as a frustrating day for Ferrari ended up becoming a sporting humiliation that exposed not only the technical ineffectiveness of the SF25, but also the team's total loss of competitiveness in highly demanding conditions. It was a short session, just a few laps, but enough to condense the disaster in its crudest form. Charles Leclerc finished in 13th position, Lewis Hamilton in the 17th. Neither car scored, and that, in a team like Ferrari, is not simply a bad result. It is an alarm signal, a red alert that screams that something is going very wrong within the project. The most striking thing was not the position itself, but the context. Ferrari had not been out of the points in a sprint race since Monza 2021. That fact is not trivial. It means that even in their recent worst moments, they had not touched such a low level. The race began, and from the beginning it was evident that the SF25 did not have the pace to compete. While McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull were aggressively competing every corner, the Ferraris were simply not in the fight. They were absorbed by the middle pack, surpassed even by teams that, on paper, should be behind: Williams, Aston Martin, Racing Bulls. In each lap, the car seemed to lose time in all sectors, without the ability to attack or defend. Leclerc attempted to maintain the pace in the opening laps, but soon became trapped in an area where dirty air, premature tire degradation, and lack of traction made progress impossible. His car suffered at the exit of each fast corner, unable to maintain lateral stability without losing traction. The car vibrated, moved erratically, and at no time seemed to allow him to apply all his talent. For his part, Hamilton was even more invisible on the track. At no point was he close to the top 10. There were no spectacular overtakes, no direct duels, not even decent defenses. It was a slow and painful transition to the lower part of the grid. His car wasn't behaving. Aerodynamic balance was non-existent. The braking was inconsistent. The steering lost sensitivity as the race progressed. The British pilot seemed more like a passenger than a driver, moving aimlessly in the middle of a mechanical storm. And while this was happening, the rest of the paddock watched in disbelief. No one at Ferrari seemed to have answers. There were no strategic adjustments, no hopeful radio messages, nor a minimal reaction from the wall. It was as if the team had accepted defeat before crossing the checkered flag. The degradation of the tires was also another factor that exposed the car's shortcomings. While other teams managed to manage the load and maintain pace, Ferrari was devouring its tires at an alarming rate. The SF25 easily overheated the rear compounds, causing lap times to plummet by just 5 laps. And in a sprint, where every tenth counts, that is unforgivable. In short, what happened in the Qatar Sprint was not simply a bad performance. It was a confirmation, a painful demonstration that the SF25, in its current configuration, is not ready to compete, and that not even two drivers of the caliber of Leclerc and Hamilton can save him from himself. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, two drivers with experience, speed, leadership, and high-caliber credentials, faced the most frustrating weekend of the year without being able to do anything about it. None of them made gross mistakes. None failed in execution. Both simply found themselves behind the wheel of a tool that does not respond, that does not transmit, that does not allow competition. In a sport where the driver makes the difference only if the machine accompanies him, the helplessness was total. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.